on that, along with Rand Paul and a few others,
Yes.
to get together and say, let's come up with a single plan we can take to the American people and say, here's how it should really work. Much more market-based, much more freedom-based. If you like your plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep him or her.
Really?
I've heard that before.
We'll actually keep that promise. It really isn't a promise the government needs to make. It's what it used to be before this giant blob came in and ruined a lot of people's lives and health insurance situation. My wife was just fit to be tied as she was sitting on her computer signing up for this stuff last December. We in the House had to get into the new plan a little bit ahead of everybody else. I mean, it's really a liberty-stealing thing forced into this. It makes you angry. And so I feel it as a member of the House of Representatives, just like everybody else, and being forced into a plan that when you were pretty happy is what you had. If you want to do something to fix health care, you would go after things that drive up the cost unnecessarily of delivering health care. Litigation is out there, the high cost of insuring a doctor's office or insuring a hospital, the high cost of bringing pharmaceuticals to market. These are things that need the attention. The ability to choose more health care plans from across state borders instead of arbitrary lines and say, oh, you can only have them from here. And we represent a portion of California here that borders Oregon and borders Nevada. There's people that no longer have the choice if their doctor, if they live in Tule Lake and they go over to Merrill for a doctor's visit or to a hospital up in Klamath side, they no longer can do that because of the arbitrary nature of the Affordable Care Act. So then you have to stay in California. So you got to drive to Redding or something. And how is that right? How is that good? How does that make it more affordable or better service to people? Young people are staying away in droves, even though we're all going to have this penalty if we don't sign up. Well, they waived this, they waived that. You're talking about, oh, you Republicans, you voted 40-something times to repeal Obamacare. Well, that's a pretty glossed over. It's been different pieces of legislation to address portions of it or to go for a delay for it until they can actually catch up with the program and working websites. There's a lot of aspects. And then the president himself has signed 7 or 8 of those bills to change aspects of Obamacare as well. So that's a little duplicitous to say, all you guys are trying to do is just pass legislation. Sir?
Yeah, a couple things. One is about with respect to health coverage does not equal health care, which people are finding out in droves these days, that just because they have a plan doesn't mean they can find a doctor. There's been lots of stories about that. Just because they used to have a doctor and they had treatment for cancer, they no longer, about 500 out of 7,000 medicines are actually covered. So, there's lots of people who the meds that they've taken for years or things that have helped them are no longer covered. So that's another big issue. I mean, we could talk on and on and on and on about all that stuff. I would like to see, I think we need more nurses and we need more physicians. I see no reason, because I used to teach at the dental school, I see no reason that we can't do double shifts at some of those schools.
If you have people that want to get into this industry now.
Well, that's a separate issue. If people are going to be regulated to death, physicians don't want to do it. And we've had a boatload of them drop out, cut back, not take new patients, et cetera, et cetera. And, I don't see that getting better. The more regulations that come at them and lowering their fees, they're not going to do it. They're going to quit. They're going to do something else. They're going to sell it to hospitals. They're going to become administrators. They're going to do other things. They're going to have boutique practices. And so we'll have even a greater shortage of physicians. So that's just the healthcare side of it. But basically, the reason Obama wanted this to happen was about control. He wants to control the people. And how you control the people is through health care. You can do this, you can't do that, and we haven't even explored all of that stuff that could be happening with respect to, I mean, if I'm the health czar and I say, oh, well, I'll tell you what, everybody in the room's got to have chicory coffee and cornflakes for your breakfast. That's the new mandate of the health care bill, and you have to go to the state store to get it, but they don't know how much to get, and maybe some people don't like chicory coffee, or some people are allergic to cornflakes, or whatever. I'm just trying to bring up the point that centralized, one-size-fits-all stuff just doesn't fly.
It's an eternal battle since
Yeah.
I've been a legislator.
Yeah.
You have, whether it's California state where you have urban legislators trying to make policy that somehow is going to fit the whole state. It doesn't even come close to fitting what happens in Susanville or Montague or Reading or Chico or whatever.
I also think that another way to solve some of the underserved people would be to have urgent care centers. That would be far cheaper than all of this, stuff that we've done. Oregon, I heard today, quit their state plan. They're going to the Fed thing. It's just not working out for them. They've had very few people sign up. Hawaii spent $300 or $400 million on this. They've had a grand total of 8,000 people sign up. Just that, all of that stuff is just a nightmare. It's a joke. I can't believe how much money has been wasted trying to get this off the ground. And it's a bad idea to start with.
Doesn't it just make you angry as
Oh.
a taxpayer? Because, it's not, and this isn't politics, honestly. Okay?
Yes.
If it worked, it'd be one thing like, well, here, touche, you got one there, Mr. President, and you're in a different party than me, whatever. But it's hurting people in just about every aspect of it. You can't look at any part of the plan and say it's improved it, other than a handful of people that used to be uninsurable have now gotten into a program. Now, and as you say, I don't know if they can even get to a doctor still, because there's no doctors that want to be in the plan anymore. And we step back from it and say, okay, we're going to do something about health care. This isn't the first time. And Republicans also have talked about ways to make health care better, but they don't get the light of day because there hasn't been the Senate votes in the past when there was a type of majorities to do it, or what have you, because there's this big holy grail to have what they call single-payer health care, and this looks like this is intent on, it can only be built to collapse, this current plan. And then government steps in, well, we have an emergency, we better do single-payer.
Yeah, but anybody that thinks single payer is a great idea should take a look at the current situation with the vets.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. I use that example as well, because the Veterans Administration and the health care that they are to receive, that's a small, of the whole pie of the population of the country, that's a fairly small slice of that pie, right? And look how well that's being run for our veterans, the people we are supposed to honor probably the most of any of our population. It's being run poorly. Our vets, in some cases, yeah, they're getting pretty good health care, okay? But a lot of cases they're not. They're having to wait months and months to get a test. They have to get in a van at 3 in the morning up at Wairika to be transported down to Martinez or Oakland or someplace to get a test done. Why aren't they just given a card? You can go to your nearest hospital, nearest urgent care, your nearest anything, and have this done and be reimbursed by the government in a fair way. I mean, what would be efficient? What would be honoring towards the vets? We can't even run the vets program. They want to take the other rest of that pie of the population and put them into something that the federal government can't manage. It's not supposed to manage that. It's supposed to be the private sector and a market-based situation that is going to excel. It was pretty good in the past years until more and more intervention, more and more mandates saying, well, your health plan is required to cover this, required to cover that. All that does is make the costs go up, where the base plan is more expensive than a lot of people want to pay for, especially young people. They'll say, I can get by without that because probably nothing's going to happen. Well, if it does, they're in a catastrophic situation here where now it's a burden on their family or society because they didn't have that responsibility. So if we incentivize people and make them look at the moral issue, we don't have to mandate, hit them over the head with a club saying you have to do this, have to do that. And after this lesson, it's been taught to the American people. I don't know if they ever would. So we will be relentless on trying to fix this situation with our national health care, health insurance.
I don't think
Because
you
it
can.
has to be done.
I
It's
don't
hurting the economy. Look at the part-time jobs that are happening now. And then the stuff you hear coming out of Washington is like, oh, this is great. Everybody would rather be on a part-time job because you'll have more time for art and poetry. If you need the hours, you need the hours. You want a 40-hour work week probably is enough for a lot of people with the way the cost of everything is going up with $4.50 gas and price of food going up and electricity, maybe with fracturing, is getting a little bit better, but so much of our economy is things are costing more, and people are seeing their hours cut because they have to try and bounce around this Obamacare mess, and people say, oh, Obamacare's making it better for you. So,
Well, he's absolutely right, because communist Lenin said the key to a successful communist takeover of a free society is for the state to get control of the healthcare system. Lenin called socialized medicine the keystone to the arch of the socialist state, because if they can control your healthcare, they can control your life.
When are you most vulnerable is when you're ill.
Oh, yeah.
Even a small thing like a toothache. When you got a bad toothache,
You need help.
you hardly even do anything else other than, I mean, you can, you get by, but man, it sure takes away your ability to concentrate. And so having that control of healthcare, especially the way these guys are running anything, is another thing. And so we will continue to battle against that. And it'll be interesting to watch the 2014 elections, as I think, again, it will be a kind of a, what do you call it, referendum on how the plan is actually turning out. So, but we have to have an alternative. We have to come back with actual solutions, and we're putting them forward, because having a guy like Dr. Ben Carson on our side on this thing, I think really is a good spokesman for what works, because his credentials, his pedigree is impeccable.
Yeah.
Is what he's done. He even had a movie done about his life there, which
Gifted Hands. It's called Gifted Hands.
Gifted Hands. I thought that was one of the most uplifting things I'd seen in a long, long time. A very positive movie, especially for a kid like him, a kid that came from maybe not the best background situation there, but he had a mother that cared about him, loved him, and a brother. What a positive deal that is. Why don't we learn from that instead of the bad things that are happening in the society? So, sir.
Doug, I have one question, speaking about that. The infighting within the Republican Party right now, with like Mitch McConnell and John Boehner running their mouths about Rand Paul and Mike Lee, as far as that aspect, because there is this strain of libertarianism is growing among the youth in the country. With the elections coming up, are the Republicans getting together and actually saying, we have a social war that we need to win more? Because there's the hearts and minds of the American people are really faltering too much. Because we all know that when people get mad in 2008, when George Bush wanted to push for the amnesty, it pissed off the country. And everybody started calling the representatives, and then it died. And it could have passed with the Democratic House, Senate, and with President George Bush wanting to sign it. There's a big culture war that seems to, if the legislature and the other leaders can get together and actually stir up the commotion to bring back the prestige of liberty and individual responsibility again to the youth of the nation, to actually put pressure on their elected officials. Are there any plans for anything like that? It's not policy, but it's leadership.
It's not policy, but
it's really important, because that can help further along getting out the either inept colleagues within the Republicans or the Democratic members of the House or Senate, and it could just really help change things a lot within the states and the federal legislatures. So I was just curious if there's anything moving towards that to help foster that environment.
You're probably talking a little more about party politics and things within that nature, but
I think more inspiration and leadership to actually encourage the American people to push back against the garbage and demand that the policy is changed to the right.
well, what's fully acknowledged here is that it isn't just enough to lead with a negative, like, well, Obamacare is bad.
Exactly.
Try and win elections on that. It is about, what is your plan? And that's being formulated and crystallizing in this election cycle on healthcare, but also on what is going to bring jobs, what's going to rebound an economy. A simple thing that should be like the Keystone Pipeline. What a political vote. Well, it's become so hot and toxic that can either side not move from its position? Republicans, can they ever change course and say, no, we shouldn't build that? Well, I don't see a reason we shouldn't. We have 2.3 million miles of pipelines underground in North America. Okay, so another 800 or 900 miles, does that really change a lot? And all these pipelines carry similar things, whether it's gas or oil, other products. And so is it really that big of a deal? This has become a political death struggle over this thing. And with the president's decision here a few days ago to say, oh, we're gonna push it off till after the election. It's way beyond policy and way over into the political. So now does this give a basis for the senators from the so-called red states and Democrat senators that are in fear for their job this year to say, we need to do for this, I'm against the president, is this a political platform that they can win on? I don't understand. Everybody needs to be held accountable for what they do with their votes collectively. And so if it inspires people to say, I'm going to throw down in this election and vote for people that want to restore America's place in the world as a superpower, restore America's economy to one that gives us all opportunities so that when the tax base is flowing due to a fair level of taxation, our schools are stronger, our infrastructure is stronger. These are the kinds of things that are basic nuts and bolts of what makes a society successful and what's made America successful. I would hope that this is what people would grasp onto and not think that it's more and more the population thinks it's going to come from the government creating another program because it's failing in what it does. Take the VA as a narrow example, take the ACA, Obamacare is a bigger example, and our foreign policy, I mean, we got to do better. And it comes from the ideas the American public has and their desires to strengthen what we're about and not come from Washington, D.C. It's not supposed to be top down. You send us there. Town halls like this help me to stay on track with where I need to go. And when I offer myself as a candidate to you, I hope I'm articulating the things that would say, yes, you're on the right track. So.
Congressman, first and foremost, I would like to thank you for coming here this evening and meeting with us. Yesterday, the Department of Justice went to a retired CHP chief's home and attempted to disarm him because his name appeared on the Armed Prohibited Persons Systems list. What action has your office taken or can you take to stop the warrantless, unlawful way the DOJ has conducted gun raids on legal gun owners in Shasta County?
Okay, you're talking to the State Department of Justice.
The state, it's one DOJ agent from SAC, one from Chico, and one from Redding. And they're going by the list and they're going to legal gun owners.
They're going door to door, basically. Yeah,
And taking
Without
weapons.
warrants.
yeah, because what you have here is that legislation passed in the state here, I don't quite remember when, but to expand the list, I think, of people that are ineligible to own guns. You know, this is part of that anti-gun atmosphere you have in Sacramento anyway. And so it's very dangerous to me because we know there's some people that shouldn't be in possession of it, right? Violent former criminals or current criminals, those that have violence restraining orders, and maybe some that are not with the mental capacity to be in the situation of gun ownership. But that's very dangerous to me because who's deciding who those people are?
Well, apparently there's a list, and,
The list of names or
The
list of
list of
criteria?
names.
The criteria should be the key factor.
well, they have a list of names, and Sheriff Tom Pacinko stated that over 60% of the names on the list shouldn't be on there. And I don't know why a retired CHP chief would be on the list. There was also a reverend that was on the list.
They said he had too many guns.
Too many guns. Too many
Who
registered
decides
Yeah.
how many guns is arrested?
I mean, they know of 7 cases where people have called and said, hey, this just happened to me. How many cases are going on in Shasta County, in Redding? You know, what is going on over there?
And if
how
I
soon
recall
before how
correctly,
soon-
under legislation, they're taking the droves fees to
Yes, yes.
use that to enforce this additional level.
Yes.
Yes, they're taking $16 out of every time you go buy a weapon. They take $16 out of the 25 that you pay for the background check.
So that means the fee is too high. If they can use $16 for something other than the background check, it's only supposed to be for the background check. This is a tax now. This has gone beyond a gun buying fee.
Yeah, they illegally took the money.
Yeah,
They
yeah, I
illegally
remember
took the
that
money.
bill. That was That was, did I have a vote on that, or was that one I heard about after?
Was that Leland Yee,
Yeah, that was a state senator.
the gun runner?
Yeah.
I'm not one of the senators. So, how do we stop this?
Yeah.
You're in California.
Part of the United States.
People's Republic.
It's
I don't have a
infringing.
solution on how to beat back a state bill that I already opposed on this, other than this probably needs to be tested in court, because even if our sheriff over in Shasta County believes that 60% are, and that's the problem. The list is the problem. Inappropriate use of this tax is another part of the problem, but the bigger part is the loss of liberty, that someone can arbitrarily decide to put you on this list. You have former military that someone decides, oh, well, you're might be just a little bit of a.
According to Feinstein, all of them.
Yeah, Feinstein said all the veterans are
Domestic.
mentally ill and the government should prevent them from owning guns.
Sadly, people are gonna get hurt over this.
Yes.
They likely could. Yeah. I don't have the solution off the top of my head because of the interaction of federal versus state here. Now, if federal funds are somehow being used to this, and we have an appropriations process where there's a line item in that, then guess who's going to be in there pitching to say no more dollars?
Thank
So,
you.
but we have a state that is. I mean, every time my airplane lands in Sacramento, I look down to see if there's alligators in those rice fields that came from the state capital. They're coming after our basic liberties. Whether it is gun rights or
Well, that's what our
rights
sheriff
to be able
said.
to select the proper bathroom for you or your kids to go.
That's why we want to be Jefferson.
I get the state of Jefferson loud and clear, man. So I'm aware of that going on, and I don't have a federal government solution to that, other than maybe we can investigate to see what that interaction is. Is our funds being somehow augmented by the feds into the state DOJ to do this? But it's offensive to me, and it's very dangerous when we have an already proven group of people in Sacramento, or even in the federal government as well, that are anti-gun rights people. And that they get to make the list, and they get to make the list. So,
But they work for us and they forget that.
long forgotten. So
So your
We-
office can't take any action, they can't.
we have to see what action is possible to take, okay? I'm not aware of
Going
that.
on for about 2.5 weeks.
I'm not aware of that off the top of my head, so, of what we can do, because this is fairly, well, it's been talked about a lot, but this particular timeline of raids is a newer thing,
Yeah, it's been going on for a couple of weeks.
yeah. Okay.
And I'm from that area.
That's Brian Dolly.
Yeah, She needs a little time off too, so.
You need to ask Brian Dolly.
Who's that?
Brian Dolly?
Your Assemblyman, yeah, he may be able to find it from that end though too, but he's pretty outgunned, so to speak.
Yeah, Leland Yee has outgunned a lot of people. Shrimp Boy Raymond Chow, oh,
He's part of the indicted Senator of the Month Club, man.
still getting a
They
paycheck.
only won that week either.
No.
Three of them.
Yeah.
When I was there, me and Leland got along fine and stuff, and he had a terrible, I don't know, assault weapons bill or something there in 2012 that he finally pulled back. I think it was the bullet button gun bill there. So he pulled it back, so I went and talked to him, well, hey, I appreciate you pulling that bill back because there's nothing that's really going to improve that situation. So I actually had an NRA tie. I thought, and as a reminder for that, for doing the right thing, even though it's a backwards way of doing it, I'm going to let you have my NRA tie.
You wore it
In
proudly.
exchange, he gave me one of his bright red with the yellow Chinese dragon tie. So I have that going, maybe I'll wear it to work one of these days. But when I gave him that NRA tie, I didn't know that he would take it so hard during his off hours. And, I make a little levity out of that, but it's a sad situation
That law
that
did
our
pass.
state legislators can feel that much about the law. There's three of them in the state senate now, which is effectively, speaking politically, no more supermajority for one party in the senate. It's going to blunt their efforts to shove new taxes or issues onto the ballot this year down the throat, which has Senator Steinberg pretty frustrated.
Are there any Democrats that are not corrupt?
That law actually did pass. You have to have a bullet by the California ER-15.
Well, in 2012, it was pulled back, but yes, so yeah, I should probably go take my tie back, huh?
I think so.
I have to go talk through the glass with the phone. So, questions?
I want to change subject. Sierra Army Depot is pretty important to the local economy here. It provides about 1,400 jobs that are split between Lassen County and Washoe County, Nevada. What is the possibility of you and Congressman Amity from Washoe County and Nevada calling that base your own in the next, and ensuring the mission out there so we can maintain those jobs?
Malfa Amity Army Depot?
You betcha.
Well, we're certainly interested in the topic. Both Mark and I had toured that base some months ago to see what goes on there. I'm new to this game here on the federal level, so it's very impressive what they're doing. They're reprocessing armaments and other material that had come from the military. So it's important to our economy, obviously.
They support the mission with the clothing of the reserves as they go out. But it's, back in the east, I've been told that congressmen kind of pull in those bases and call them their own, and they ensure the missions of these bases.
Well, we're very protective of it in what goes on, and right now there doesn't seem to be a threat by any kind of a BRAC situation towards it, and it does have its own unique strategic value here with a huge airstrip and its remoteness, but still being on the west coast. It has a lot of good value, and we're looking for ways to have it enhance its value, and there was ideas of maybe being able to sublet portions for private vendors to be able to use that as a basing area for like a FedEx or UPS type situation too. So we're out there looking and supporting ways to have it be a well-rounded facility that lives on for a long time. As far as making it my own, I mean, we're going to always be protective of it as things that may come along and threaten it, or find ways to enhance it on the positive to keep it strong and viable for the long term, because it's a big deal to us.
You want to remember too, they promised to let us drive that locomotive next time we come out.
If they let me drive the choo-choo, then it'll be firm. Just kidding, but so that's a bucket list thing, whistle.
I can understand that.
No, we're with you on that, and if you know something that we need paying attention to, of course, we accept and look forward to that input, okay? All right. So, but yeah, we do already have a good collaborative effort with Mr. Amadei, as well as Senator Heller. He had his staff over with us too, so, it's good.
I heard a comment on the news this afternoon that nobody is being blamed, but they don't know who started that, who gave the order for that Bundy land grab.
Oh, okay, well, we're gonna have some fun with that, the Bundy land grab. Who gets the blame or the credit for that? It goes back up somewhere in the BLM, Department of Interior. So I sit on the subcommittee that oversees public lands. Congressman Rob Bishop from Utah is the chair of that committee, and he doesn't pull any punches. So I'm looking forward to when the hearing will be held. I'm bringing them in and holding them accountable. Now, did the Bundys do everything right? Doesn't look like it. But does what they had happen in that situation, does it really require 20 snipers and an army? The impression that we as Americans, as Western people, as rural people, feel just looking at those pictures?
Disarm BLM.
Yeah, but,
Yeah, but when did they start taking over money being brought into the BLM? Doesn't the Department of Treasury have people that come out, or the FBI, or DEA or some other agency.
So much
Rather
these
than
agencies-
US Air Service or BLM, these guys become cash grabs.
So much of these things do flow through the treasury, not directly to the department in these cases, such as green timber harvest goes directly to the treasury, not to the Forest Service. It's up to us to appropriate, right? So you want that, you want the power of the purse to be within the priorities of the House, the legislators on those budget committees and appropriations committees. So it's usurpation of power again. This administration doesn't seem to be bashful at all about